And we want
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio. Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the female solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, executive producer of the Female Solution Radio Show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. What if you could live to be 120 years old and remain active, healthy, alert, and vibrant? Our bodies are made up of cells that are constantly rejuvenating. So if we take proper care of ourselves, we can literally defy aging. Join us every Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time to learn about self-care from Suson Essentials on the Female Solution Blog Talk Radio Show. Learn how to help your body and your cells feel rejuvenated each day through proper nutrition, sleep, frequency medicine, and many unconventional methods of self-care. I'm Jodi Suson. Join me and my amazing guests by calling in at 515-605-9325 and press 1 to speak. We'll help you achieve a breakthrough in your health today.
Good Tuesday morning. I hope you guys have your Java or your tea or whatever wakes you up in the morning. This is Jodi Suson with Suson Essentials, and you are tuning in to self-care. And I am excited to say that today we're going to be discussing health management over disease management. And I have one of my favorite people in the world joining us today. Her name is Amy Pieczarka, and she's a registered I'm let her tell you the title, but she's the Director of Nutrition Services with Previmedica. Previmedica is a sister company to Cell Sciences. And this is going to be, if you're tuning in and you're listening today, this is going to be transformational for your health. So let me bring Amy into the fold. Hello and good morning.
Good morning, Jodi. Great to see you. Great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, so happy to have you. So happy to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So, so we met through the test that I took, which is LCAT, which is food sensitivity testing. And, I've been using the test, I think, since 2016. And I'm so excited to have the world learn about why this test is so important when they have symptoms that they can't really, figure out. So why don't you start off, if you don't mind, explaining what the test does, and then maybe share how you got involved, because you took the test, right?
Yes. Well, like most practitioners, I think what we do is we try, when we come across testing, we try it out on ourselves and our families before we suggest it for our patients. So, I think it's a great way to have experience with the testing. But yes, at this point, I really can't remember how many years ago it's been now, but I got involved with the LCAT food and chemical sensitivity testing when I was struggling with some issues that I couldn't explain, and it happened at all the right time for me. I had been practicing nutrition for many years, and I felt like I was spinning my wheels with a lot of my patients, with not really being able to make a difference with the diets that we've been taught to prescribe wasn't working. And, I was introduced to functional nutrition and, getting to the root causes and addressing gut health. And I started struggling with gaining a pound a week, even though I was counseling people on how to lose weight and manage their health. And I thought to myself, how am I going to do what I do if I continue to do what I do if I can't control my own weight? So I was panicking. But anyway, it all happened at the right time for me.
Another show, fight or flight, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. So I, was taking functional nutrition courses, continuing education courses, and introduced to the concept of food sensitivities and how it could impact just about any organ system in the body, really, including thyroid issues, which I thought I had. So long story, I took the test, and sure enough, it explained, I cut out the foods that I was reacted to, continued to eat the same amount of food, exercise the same. And within a week, at most 2 weeks, I had lost the 7 pounds that I had gained. So it was incredible. And I used the test on my son who was struggling with ADD, and it made a major, major difference for him as well. So it is so important, and what the LCAT test is doing, and I feel it's important for your listeners to understand that there are many adverse reactions to foods, and there's no one test in the world that's going to detect every adverse reaction that exists. But although the LCAT test is very, very comprehensive, it is a food sensitivity test. So when we think of adverse reactions, we should think of food allergies. And this is not a food allergy test. Food allergies are the immediate response. As far as symptoms, they would happen within minutes of ingesting the offender up to 2 hours later. And the symptoms are pretty profound. It could be the throat closing shut, anaphylaxis, immediate hives. Those are allergies. So if a patient has allergies, they need to continue to avoid those. Doesn't matter what the LCAT test results say about those foods, because it's not an allergy test. So that's one thing to know. Intolerances is another adverse reaction that the LCAT test is not identifying. Intolerances don't involve the immune system. Intolerances really are the lack or the insufficient availability of a particular enzyme that's necessary to digest a particular component in food. Lactose intolerance, for example. People know about lactose, right? That's the insufficient availability of lactase FODMAP intolerance. It's an intolerance. It's, a person can certainly have those issues, but the ALCAT test is food sensitivity testing, and it's identifying the activation of the cells of the innate immune system, so the white blood cell response. And what's happening is when those white blood cells react, they're changing in number and in size. And as they're doing that, they are releasing inflammatory, you could call them substances or messengers or mediators into the circulation, into the gut and in the circulation. And those are the substances that tend to lead to the symptoms that people can't explain. And the other thing I like to point out about this is symptoms are one thing, but what about, the fact that inflammation is the connection, really the underlying contributing factor to every one of our chronic issues in our country. And I always say to people, how do you necessarily feel inflammation? Like when people look at the results, oh, I can't possibly have a problem with beef. I eat beef all the time.
Yes,
and
you do.
Say, well, that's the point. That's exactly the point. You can't feel that. You're looking for immediate symptoms, and that's not what this test is about.
Right. So because it can show up anywhere between 7 and 72 hours. Is that right?
Yeah. So anywhere from 2 hours after ingesting the offender up to, and if the symptoms are noticeable, anytime up to 4 days later. Yes, so very delayed. And the symptoms tend to be more chronic in nature, like people struggling with fatigue, weight issues, migraines, IBS, bloating, constipation, skin issues, eczema. They tend to be more chronic in nature.
Well, and like for me, and I think I shared this with you, how it showed up for me. Well, I'm just going to show everybody. So if you're on the radio, you might want to tune into YouTube or Facebook, Suson Essentials, and check this out. So I was 234 pounds. I don't know if you've ever seen that picture. That's
very impressive.
Well, it's impressive that I could gain that much weight.
Well, I mean, what you did to rectify that. Yes, that's amazing. Good for you.
And thank you to Cell Science, for what they did, right? And so I had to pin my underwear because I was technically disabled when I took this test, and I didn't have money to buy any more underwear. So, it's like at my knees or at my ankles, there's no way to keep it up. I lost like 92 pounds. Boom. So,
phenomenal.
Because I followed it, right? I wanted my health back. And I was going to do whatever it took to get my health back. Mm-hmm. So, and to me, it was just crazy. And so crazy is a great word because that's the point I wanted to make. Your son, you said, had symptoms of ADD. Is that right? Or ADHD?
ADD, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they had diagnosed me with bipolar. So if you think that food is not impacting your mental health, it either fuels it for a really positive, amazing outcome or not.
Mm-hmm.
You can't know this unless you take this test if you're very symptomatic. And all my mood swings went away, just gone. And anyway, so I think that there's so much to learn. The public has so much to learn about how food, their daily intake, impacts their well-being. And I pulled up, I looked at the documents, and I probably should have chatted with you, but there's one that shows the white blood cell and what it goes through. Which document is that on? That shows,
which document is it on?
Yeah.
It's on the scientific dossier. I believe it's page 4.
You're awesome. So why don't you go ahead and continue telling people about this test and the importance, and I will pull up page 4 of the scientific dossier.
Sure. So with regard to the testing, I mean, the way I look at it as a nutritionist, and I've been doing, providing nutrition therapy to people for 36 years. And, you always hear one size does not fit all. And, you hear individualization is important. And this is what I really want people to understand, because, people throughout my career have said to me, yeah, if I can't come to you or someone like you, what diet book would you tell me to read? What diet should I follow? And I said, can't think of one, because that would not be individualized for you. And I think this is why so many people are spinning their wheels, because they feel like they can get the information they need on the internet. And I'm not saying that there are not benefits to a lot of the different eating patterns that are recommended. Certainly there seems to be at least some benefits to following them, but is that the best thing for the person? No, not necessarily. So the way I look at this testing is, this is determining the repertoire of foods that the person is going to work for the person, what's non-reactive. Now, I'm not saying, as I said before, there are certain factors that we may need to keep in mind. What if the patient has true allergies? What if they have other intolerances? Yes, but we take out those allergies. And here's an example of FODMAP. A lot of times people are coming to us or having the ALCAT test because of following FODMAP, seeing some benefit, but not everything.
Right.
And I say to them, okay, so why don't we put all of our faith into your ALCAT test results for right now? Because this is based on you. This is based on your cells reacting to the food, the test agents. It is not a blanket diet. Now, I'm not saying FODMAP can't be helpful. Absolutely. But again, those are intolerances. So then I say that this test is based on you. So this is the individualization. And then you follow it. You work to heal the gut. At the same time, we need to, work on gut healing. Everything starts in the gut. Stress management, certainly, we talked about this, you and I, Jodi, about trauma and stress impacting the gut, impacting gut health and the immune response. But we need to work on that and then see how the patient is doing with regard to all their reasons for testing in the first place. What the goal is, we want to hear the person say, I feel great. My digestion is good. I'm now going to the bathroom at least once a day, which, people feel like going to the bathroom 4 days a week, having a bowel movement 4 days a week is okay. That is not okay. We need to eliminate more frequently. And I'm
going to tell you that a short personal story. So my mom had cancer. She passed of cancer. And I know you know this. I don't think that the listening audience may know this. The impact of not eliminating your waste frequently, daily, right? Twice daily. I go 3 times daily. If you're not eliminating those toxins that are in your waste, are staying in your system and building up and causing disease. My mom, I think once she went for 9 days without going to the bathroom. It sent her to the hospital because they had to then, of course, manually remove this.
Yikes. Yeah, that is not a good situation. That is not good. And I think a lot of people get to the point where they say, oh, that's just me. That's just me. No. And you might 3 times a day. It's funny. It's good because the joke among nutritionists is Going less than 3 times a day is constipation. Any more than that is diarrhea. You know, it must be 3 times per day. You know.
Well, and I didn't know that, but you know, like,
well, it's a joke. The point being, yeah, I mean, we need that motility. We need to, you know, keep things moving along. And it's funny. I just have a another example to share. A patient who I was working with, just, you know, I started working with her 2.5 weeks ago. She did the ALCAT test. You know, so I went over everything with her. I told her what to do, and she embraced it completely. She was only going to the bathroom 2 to 3 times per week. But that wasn't even her reason for the test. Her reason was migraines, chronic migraines. So she would get them, you know, 3 times a month or so. So I'm saying, well, all right, yeah, everything starts in the gut. We've got to get you going to the bathroom more frequently. And of course, she's like, oh, I've always been like that. I'm never, and she's 50 years old. I never have gone more than that. I said, yeah, okay, well, we got to try to get that better. So anyway, I followed up with her just a few days ago. And first thing she said to me is, Amy, this is life-changing. I can't tell you how wonderful I feel. I haven't had a migraine since I did this. So I said I had a slight headache, but it wasn't like the stabbing feeling in my eye. She says, I think it was from the weather change, not, you know, anything I was eating. She didn't have to go in a dark room and go to bed. She said, I'm going to the bathroom at least once a day now. And this was just 2.5 weeks after. Yeah. And then she said, and I'm losing weight. And that wasn't even my main goal, although I would, you know, love to do. And that's the other thing that people notice. Their main goal a lot of times is to, you know, to identify the culprits that are leading to their symptoms, their bothersome symptoms. But then they say, oh my gosh, my weight is just responding. And I don't have to count calories. And I don't have to count all these grams of carbohydrate and protein and fat. You know, it's wonderful, you know, to determine that repertoire of foods that's going to work.
Well, and it, you know, and that's how I felt too, right? I mean, and it's emotional. It's very emotional because when you get a clear-cut path to reclaim your health, clear cut, no guesswork, right? This is what works. This doesn't work. This is unique to your body. I mean, I'm choked up, quite frankly, because I'm remembering that day that things just started happening for me. My pain went away. My eczema went away. My fat went away. And I know the visual audience can't really see this so well, but there's plenty of these pictures on the internet of me. Yeah, it's an issue.
It's quite a change, yes.
That's not the big issue. It was the fact that you couldn't see my eyes because it was so inflamed. There was so much inflammation, you couldn't see my eyes. And so the test got rid of the inflammation, which then got rid of everything else.
That's right. That's right. It's identifying a root cause, right?
And yeah, that was amazing. And what I'd like to do, and unfortunately, I was not able to see the scientific dossier. Is there a place on the internet that I can pick it up?
You could try to look at, is there any way that I can show it or no?
Yes.
I can? How can I show it?
You bring it up, press the share button, and then I'll add it into the thread. So it'll just be a little bit of a process. And we are going to commercial in 7 minutes. And then what Amy is bringing up is an image of what happens to your white blood cells. Is that right, Amy?
Yes.
Okay. So what I might do while Amy's doing that is
with a simple blood test and food plan, Suson.
I'm actually just going to run a little quick 16-second commercial. Hold on.
Okay. Trying. All right. So now how do I get this to you, Jodi?
Oh, okay. So hold it. So you want to, let me just, so I'm going to pop this one out. Hold on. Stop screen share. So go ahead and hit +sign + share. It's at the bottom. at your screen.
Yeah.
So do not see.
Okay.
Okay. So hit that, hit plus share.
Okay.
And it should show up. You'll be given an option to share
Screen
screen.
sharing is easy to monitor. Screen sharing works best on a good computer. Some screens let you. Okay, so. Okay, cool. Can you see that?
I'm going to add it to the stream. Yep, there we go. That's the one I was looking for. So, and actually, so this is good for it. Yeah. Okay. Talk about the cell.
Okay, so this is just, obviously oversimplified graphic of what's happening to the white blood cells when they are reacting. So the ALCAT test utilizes a device called the RoboCat, which was developed probably 35 years ago, and but many enhancements to it, and realizing that this is really the connection to inflammation. So there are other food sensitivity tests, by the way, but they're measuring IgG response, which is not what this is measuring. That IgG is an antibody response, and is, a lot of times it's, we look at it and say, is it really the patient's exposed to this, or is it really reactive? But anyway, this is white blood cell response, the cells of the innate immune system. So it's just showing you, all right, with the first one, the trigger, meaning the food agent, the test agent, the culprit food, let's put it that way, the receptor on the cells, and then how that impacts when it's taken into the cell, how it impacts what's going on inside the cell. The cell eventually bursts. When the white blood cells are changing in number and in size, this is what's essentially happening. They're bursting. And so that you see that last cell there with all the, that coming out of the cell, those are those inflammatory substances, or the mediators, or the messengers. And then down in that blue outlined light blue box there, it's actually telling you what does get released from the white blood cells when they are activated. So, or they call them leukocytes. This is called a leukocyte activation test. And by the way, this test has a lot of science behind it, a lot of research. And the Yale School of Medicine actually has done a few studies on this test to, number one, show the benefit in irritable bowel syndrome, and number two, show what is actually getting released from the cells. Rather than us saying, oh, this is what normally gets released from white blood cells, it is showing what is being released from the cells. Okay, so these, this is a list of the things that get released. So, for example, DNA, in nuclear DNA, this DNA that's normally in the nucleus or the mitochondria now is outside of the cells. It's highly inflammatory when that happens. So that's
when the DNA of the cell bursts out and goes outside the cell, it's saying it gets inflammatory.
Right. That's where, that in addition to the extracellular traps, the reactive oxygen species. I know later on we're going to talk about antioxidants and free radical damage, neutrophil activation or leukocyte activation, which is what this is showing, is a huge contributing factor of free radical production. But anyway, it's showing you the inflammatory substances that are being released from the cell. And then you see all these arrows leading to all these different symptoms and diagnoses that people struggle with.
Can I read these for people, what these symptoms are?
I'm sorry?
I'd like to read these symptoms.
Oh, sure. Well, the first one, the first arrow is pointing to the heart, coronary artery disease and high blood pressure. Remember, inflammation impacts everything, really, whether we feel the inflammation or not. The nervous system, migraines, like the patient I was telling you about, chronic fatigue, ADD, like my son, the burnout, the Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, anything at all. Depression is another one that we hear very often. Respiratory distress, asthma, and sinusitis. GI issues, of course, is huge. And that's, because people are realizing that good health starts in the gut. People with who are struggling with IBS and Crohn's and all sorts of GI issues are doing their research, and they're realizing, okay, gut health, and they think, oh, food sensitivities, because of course the gut is the food processing system, so but it's that might be that's probably one of the most common reasons why people would have this test done. But again, it's impacting many other areas of the body. So IBS, inflammatory bowel, diarrhea, constipation. And then metabolism. So, diabetes and obesity, metabolic syndrome. People, are kind of thinking, how could I possibly have this impact my weight? How could food sensitivities impact my weight? Well, there's a book that the developer of the test wrote, and it discusses how the consumption of our sensitive foods and the inflammation that comes from that and how it impacts our weight. So your listeners might be familiar with insulin resistance, where the cells are not allowing the insulin that we produce to take the sugar into the cells. So basically we end up with a lot of insulin being released and trying to shove the sugar into the cells because of that insulin resistance. Well, we got to take care of that insulin resistance. Well, guess what? The inflammatory substances that are created from this leukocyte activation could lead to insulin resistance. The cravings, you've heard this before, the very craving, right, of the foods that we are reactive to, right? And that has to do with the neurotransmitter, the balance, the gut-brain connection, serotonin, and so forth. So when we consume our reactive foods, our serotonin levels tend to decrease, which tends to increase cravings. So that could impact, our food sensitivities could impact, our metabolism and our risk for diabetes and obesity. And then, as I mentioned, skin issues. That's huge too. Rashes and eczema, psoriasis.
I was an eczema person. So I had something on every arrow.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was God's little gift to the world, because she'll use her mouth. If we give her a little bit of everything, and we reverse it for her, she'll tell everyone.
There you go. Absolutely. And then, of course, the last one is just immune. We are talking about the immune system, but taking it further, with autoimmunity and rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and so forth. So, basically, we're talking about anything in the body it could impact it. So, like I say, to people, when people say, I don't have any symptoms, and I say, yeah, I understand. That's great. And people say to me, who would you suggest this test for? And, I just can't not say that, hey, this test would be wonderful for everyone, whether you're symptomatic or not. My team and I'm managing a wonderful, wonderful team of nutritionists. And, I always tell people, we get tested once a year. And thankfully, we are not symptomatic, but we want to keep it that way. And we know that inflammation is happening whether we feel it or not. So we get tested just so that we can see where we are with the change in our immune response, just to make sure that we're not consuming things that would be leading to inflammation. So again, it could be beneficial for everyone, but the reasons why people get tested is because they're dealing with symptoms that are bothersome and just can't explain. They've tried every blanket diet on the internet for their symptoms. One I like is when people who do the test who have arthritis, and they'll say, yeah, I followed the anti-inflammatory diet, and I followed, I have eliminated nightshades. I say, well, that very well may be helpful, but remember, that's not individualized. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, it helped a little bit. Well, here's the thing to think about. Did it help because in the process of eliminating the things that you were told to eliminate, were you actually sensitive to those? So let's look at that first. So I mean, it's just a fascinating thing, and it's a great way for nutritionists to be able to, or any, health practitioners helping with nutrition, to determine the repertoire of food. Another example, people might say, oh my gosh, I thought salmon was the best fish to eat, because it's got omega-3.
Not for you.
Yeah, exactly. I thought walnuts were anti-inflammatory and the best not to eat. I say, well, here's the thing to remember. The health properties of the foods, everything that's tested is healthy, basically, health promoting in some way, except for the sugars that are tested. But if you're mounting a response to it, it's pro-inflammatory for you. It is not anti-inflammatory. And that's the way people need to remember and look at the results of this test.
That's amazing. And so we had, this is being aired, as you know, on YouTube and Facebook. And Zelda Robinson, who's also one of the hosts, she has a show on Monday. She says, what's the solution? We are talking about the solution. The solution, Zelda, is the LCAT test, the food sensitivity test. And so, Amy, does it make sense now? I can bring up what the results look like. And while I'm doing that, why don't you talk about, they take 6 vials of blood. I'll let you take it from there.
So, do you want me to get out of here, though? Do I need to do anything, or do you want
I'm going to actually remove that.
All right.
There you go.
So what happens is with the blood, something like that, 4, 5, 6 vials, depending on what panel the person chooses. The LCAT test is testing for probably, I want to say, just about 500 different substances, and included in there 250 foods. So,
you know what? Hold on. So my sisters just reminded me it's break time. We have to go to commercial.
Okay.
So I forgot because I get so excited, and so they're my eyes and ears and my.
That's
memory.
awesome.
So,
time to go get water.
Yeah, do that. That's
all right.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. So I can go now.
Yep. And okay. I will. So.
Okay, I'll be back.
Sure. So we are going to go to commercial here in a minute, if I can figure this out, which apparently I cannot. So we'll just do this other thing here. There we go. So, oops. Everybody got a shot they probably didn't need. So let's see.
Stay. So I'm sorry, girl.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif. Join me and my co-host Kareem Hamid every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the Female Solution Radio Show, as we explore that relationship that is the foundation for our society, the relationship between men and women, husbands and wives. Join our discussion as we seek to repair broken family ties and rebuild our community. Listen online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to our host. Or you can join us live on Facebook at www.facebook.com/the-female-solution.
I'm Beata, your holistic life coach. These days, it's more important than ever to work on your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Are you consciously breathing deeply in stressful moments? Do you have a plan or daily routine to maintain balance in your awesome body? Are you struggling to be disciplined in your eating habits? When you partner with me, I'll help you develop a personalized health plan that works for your particular lifestyle. You can find out more about me at yourholisticlifecoach.com, where you can also review my 3-step protocol to guide you to abundant health. That's yourholisticlifecoach.com. And I'm Beata.
With a simple blood test and food plan, Suson Essentials will help your business, your family, and you eliminate toxins and create a step-by-step plan to nourish your mind, body, and spirit. Click here to learn more.
All right. So, okay, so we are back, and I just did a commercial on the simple plan to eliminate the right foods and the toxins from your body. And why don't I bring up, is it a good time to bring up the test, the image of the test right now?
Sure.
Okay, and you know, we were talking earlier about FODMAP.
Mm-hmm.
What is the definition of FODMAP? What is that? I think maybe a lot of people have heard it, but they don't actually know.
Well, FODMAP is an acronym for, components in food that tend to contribute to symptoms and to maybe even contribute to foster an overgrowth of bacteria. So it stands for fructo, oligo, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. I think I got it all.
Cool.
So it's, mostly a lot of things that, like different fruits we would need to avoid on a low FODMAP plan. Garlic would be another one. Just a number of things based on those components in those foods. And it could be very helpful. It's supposed to be a short-term plan, low FODMAP for especially those who are struggling with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It certainly can be helpful, as I said, if that is the person's issue. And very often that is not the issue, or it's not the only issue. And, people need to really get tested for the immune response. And remember, FODMAP would be more of an intolerance to something rather than the immune response, which is what the ALCAT test is looking at. So again, a lot of times, just like I was saying about the person with arthritis who is avoiding the nightshades and said, well, I thought I saw benefit. Okay, well, let's look at some of the things that you reacted to that are considered nightshade vegetables. So in the process of you doing that, maybe that's why you saw a benefit. Maybe it's not necessarily because you have to avoid all of them. Maybe it's because that you just had that sensitivity to it. So it's the same thing with any real diet plan that a person is following, and there are so many, they come in, they're like, yeah, I've been following the blood type diet. I've been following low fat FODMAP. I've been avoiding this, low histamine, avoiding that. And I have to say, okay, as long as you don't have any true allergies, let's please look at the big picture here. I'm not saying that those things might not be beneficial, but let's first start with this to assess your progress. Let's work to heal the gut. Let's see in a few weeks after following this how your symptoms are to just determine, do we need to chisel away at anything else and layer in any other kind of restrictions here?
So you've mentioned the gut many, many times. I think that before we get into the test, let's explain to the listening and watching audience, what is gut health? Why is it so important? What's a leaky gut? Those things. And then I'll talk about the Eastern philosophy also. So go ahead.
Sure. So yes, you've heard, good health starts in the gut, and unfortunately so does poor health. The digestive tract, the digestive system has many organs that are involved in helping to process our food. A lot of jobs that the digestive tract digestion has to do for us, has to break down our foods, has to metabolize our foods, has to determine friend from foe, what we should eliminate and what we can allow to go into circulation. We have to extract, the digestion has to extract the nutrients from our foods. Then processing the waste and eliminating. So there are a lot of jobs, a lot of organs involved. So a lot can really go wrong. And I think most people think of that, they think of their stomach, they think of gallbladder maybe and so forth, but they're not necessarily, when we say gut health, yes, that's the entire digestive tract, but it's in particular the small intestine. And, really, which is where, things really, really do happen. So what needs to be remembered is when it comes to gut health, we need to address the immune system. 70 to 80% of the immune system is in the gut.
Wow. I just want to repeat that. 70 to 80% of the immune system, which is a hot topic today,
yes,
is in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to type that into the thread. So crazy. 70 to 80% of the immune system is housed in your gut. Like, wow. Right? So you're really concerned about anything, right? And we won't go there. Take care of your gut health. Go. I'll let you talk.
It's absolutely the first step. Absolutely. Take care of your gut. People don't think about it. People don't think about what they ingest and how it impacts. So the immune system. Microbiome, people are hearing about the friendly bacteria. We need to, bacteria. There are many, 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 many more bacteria in the gut than there are cells in our body. We have to foster good, healthy, friendly bacteria. There's dysbiosis, dysbiosis meaning the overgrowth of unfriendly bacteria. We have to address that. That is huge, and there's a lot in the literature and more and more coming out every day about how the bacteria in the gut is impacting our overall health. Gut permeability, you said leaky gut, so gut integrity. So what that has to do with is, I always tell people, think of your intestine as a tube. We have this tube, and in here, in the lining of this tube, that's considered the gut barrier, the gut lining. In there are these cells called tight junctions. And those tight junctions are they're called the gatekeepers. Okay. And they're responsible for allowing nutrients in. They decide really what should go through and what should not go through. When we have what's called leaky gut, or increased gut permeability. What that means is these little cells that are supposed to be tight enough to leave the poorly digested components and bacteria and so forth, lead it into the gut to be excreted. When they can become loose, a little bit loose, leaky, they allow these poorly digested food components into the circulation, right? So that impacts food sensitivities. The microbiome impacts the food sensitivity because it all works together.
Into the circulation means it's getting into the person's bloodstream.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me clarify.
Mm-hmm.
So I eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and it goes through my intestinal tract, and there's these little pinholes in my intestinal tract, and instead of going all the way through and out through waste, it goes into my bloodstream and causes inflammation. Yes?
Yeah, incompletely digested components of that peanut butter sandwich. Correct. Yes.
Now, I don't eat PB&J anymore, but
I do. One of my favorite meals. Yeah, on gluten-free, yeast-free waffles, not on the bread. But so the question is, all right, does leaky gut happen first to cause the food sensitivities, or does food sensitivities cause the leaky gut? It's a little bit of both, really. It's both. So, and it's hardly ever one thing, so we've got the gut permeability to think about, which is impacted by the immune response. That is impacted by the microbiome. And of course, big, huge, and a lot of practitioners feel like this is number one, is the gut-brain connection and the stress.
Yep.
The enteric nervous system, and how, that's bidirectional. So what we feel, what we think impacts gut health, the gut function.
So
the
this
gut function
impacts
the brain.
This is what you and I were talking about the trauma.
Yeah.
So I think that actually we just had different terms the other week. So for traditional Chinese medicine, they're saying that trauma will contribute to food sensitivities, because when you're in a constant fight or flight, you're in constant trauma mode, right? And that looks different for everybody. Your body starts to see food as a predator. And that may not be the exact terminology that you're using, but like the bottom line is that what you taught me and what cell science taught me in Previmedica, is rotate your food, right? So to avoid having your body to see food as a predator, don't have PB&J every single solitary day, every fourth day maybe, right? Okay.
Right. Don't bombard the immune system. Don't bombard your gut with the same food all the time. That is one of the risks of developing not the only one, of course. But absolutely, when it comes to what you're saying about stress and trauma, the chronic activation of our stress management system, the adrenals, causes the hormonal imbalances. Cortisol, norepinephrine, that impacts gut health, that impacts the microbiome, that it all works together, so in other words, the trauma and this chronic stress has manifested as food sensitivities because of its impact on the health of the gut, the immune response and the microbiome and the gut permeability, as we talked about. So absolutely. So that's one big, huge part of, now you talk about TCM, absolutely. But, when it comes to people like me, it's our job to blame everything on food, and we work on nutrients, nutrition. But we implement a protocol called the 5R program, which your listeners are probably familiar with. And in that, the last R is called rebalance, stress management. Because if we don't do that, that's number one of importance. More than anything I could say about good nutrition and exercise is managing stress, getting enough sleep, rest and repair, deep breathing, all the therapies that the experts really like you, are suggesting.
So I'm going to actually share with people, I brought it down here just in case. And the gentleman who created this is on the show next week, Dr. Frank Lawless.
Cool.
And then I'm going to bring this right back to you because I want you to talk about the 5 R's. I don't think that everybody knows, quite frankly.
Okay, sure.
So this is the BOD, the bioacoustical utilization device. And you wear it as a headset, and the volume buttons are down here. The patient or client controls the volume, and you also control the frequency. And I always put it at 2 and 2, which is set for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So I use this, and there's a lot of science behind it. And we'll talk about that next week, right? So tune in next week to listen to Dr. Frank Lawless about this, because, honey, we are helping you reclaim your health, okay? It's not done in a day, I'm going to tell you, not even done in a week. So anyway, well, right. the test is done in a moment. But I actually use this device to reverse some of my food sensitivities. We use frequency to reverse food sensitivities and also to calm the brain, to take me out of fight or flight. This takes you out of fight or flight. This gets rid of the trauma. It helps you in a way that if you have a traumatic event or someone who creates, look, I used to work for someone and I would see him and I would have a panic attack. So, it was bad. Yeah, that was right before I became disabled. So what happens is now you walk into work, you still see that person. Yeah, you don't really like them, but you don't have a traumatic response. So you're no longer triggered. You remember what they did. You're okay. You just be. So just being present in the moment is important to you. Let's talk about that later.
Right. Fantastic.
And I
Absolutely.
want to say before we go on, anybody who wants to, where can they get this book? Your Hidden Food.
They can go online to, well, first of all, they could probably get it from their practitioners who have accounts with, like as yourself, with Cell Science Systems. But Previmedica is, you know, as I said, a sister company to Cell Science, and they could get that book on previmedica.com.
Wonderful. So previmedica.com, and I'll put that in the thread.
Can I say something? All right. So let's just remember, your hidden food allergies are making you fat. Okay. So.
No, I always tell this about, so please do. I always explain what this really means, how it's a way to get everyone's attention. But go ahead and give the
real. To say, because they might say, I thought she just said it wasn't an allergy test, and no, it's not. It's not an IgE, immunoglobulin E, type 1 allergy test that causes symptoms. It's a non-IgE mediated allergy. That's why it's called food sensitivity. But think of it as hidden food allergies, more like sensitivities. Okay.
Thank you.
And then I don't want people to be confused over that. Now the making you fat,
it just gets people's attention. I get it.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it does get attention, right? So again,
this is what gets their attention because they can resonate with it.
Yeah.
Okay. We know it's not an allergy. We know it's more than weight gain, right? It's bigger picture.
It's how the inflammatory response of the leukocyte activation is impacting and interfering with our weight management efforts. Talks all about that and that connection. It's a good book.
I love the book. So if anybody wants to get that book, reach out to me. And actually, in Zelda, you said, where can we get the bod? I offer the bod. I actually now represent the bod, and I'll put a link in the thread. But let's go back about, and thank you, Zelda, for asking that question. I would love for you to explain the 5 R's, because this is really important. Really, really important.
Yes. So, really the 5R program it was developed by the Institute for Functional Medicine. And it is really such a great thing for all practitioners who are helping guide their patients to promote optimal health. And it really started out to address gut health. And of course, when people are doing the food sensitivity testing, and that's really what we need to be working on is the gut health. But really, we could apply it to just about any reason why a patient comes to see us. So the 5R program, it stands for remove, replace, repair, reinoculate, rebalance is the last R, but we also make that last R reintroduce. So the first R with remove, it's what do we need to remove from the patient's eating pattern or lifestyle? Well, the ALCAT test is telling us what we have to remove. It takes all the guesswork out of it when it comes to the food sensitivities. If the patient is eating, which by the way, this is very often not the case. A lot of patients who do this test, they're already pretty nutrition savvy a lot of times. Like they're already avoiding packaged and processed foods. They're eating fresh, low-carb, and organic. Of course, if they're not, that's another remove. We might get them to remove the sugar, remove the packaged and processed foods, remove the inorganic, that kind of thing. But a lot of times they already have that removed and they're spinning their wheels. And then, of course, that's really because, you're consuming that salmon that you thought was anti-inflammatory and the walnuts, because they're pro-inflammatory for you. So again, remove. The ALCAT test is taking the guesswork out of that. Now, the other thing we want to remove is stress.
Right.
The stressors. So we have to talk about that because that's key. And then, if a patient is struggling, let's say with candida overgrowth.
Remove that sugar.
Yeah, yeast overgrowth. If we suspect that, we have to address that and remove the excess candida. That's remove. Then it's replace. And the replace, here again, the ALCAT test tells us what foods are non-reactive to replace the ones that the patient is removing. So it's the variety of the non-reactive foods. Even if they're non-reactive, we eventually don't want that patient to have peanut butter, even though it's non-reactive, every single day. You know, variety, as you mentioned before, with a kind of rotation eating pattern. Very important.
Yep.
Right. So that's the replace. But also, if we're working with a person who, let's say they're eating not enough protein. Well, we got to get them eating more protein. We got to replace with some extra protein. How about digestive enzymes? How about hydrochloric acid support? You know, people when they get older, you know, we're producing less digestive enzymes and less HCl in the stomach. You know, that is also something that leads to poor digestion and sensitivities and inflammation. So that's replace. Then there's the reinoculate. Now that has to do with the friendly bacteria. We mentioned the working on the gut bacteria. And once again, if there's candida overgrowth, we need to look at that. We need to get fermented vegetables into the eating pattern.
Well, fermented vegetables are huge. And you're having a good, strong probiotic.
Probiotic.
Kombucha, kefir, things like
that. Yeah, as long as the person's not sensitive to
it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's why I became a purist.
Yeah, like brewer's yeast, for example. You know, if a person, with a candida overgrowth and the yeast reaction, we, have to look at all of those things. But that's the reinoculate. Prebiotics, the fiber from vegetables that help to feed that friendly bacteria.
And apple cider vinegar. Isn't apple cider vinegar a prebiotic, I heard, or no?
Well, apple itself provides some prebiotic fiber. But again, here we are. When you ask about apple cider vinegar, the first thing comes to mind is, well, what if the person reacted to apple? We can't suggest
for
that.
sure. I mean, like,
right?
Yeah, so that's always going to be the case. So let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
These are things that for the general public, we know that it's a prebiotic or probiotic. But the key is, and I had to do this, antioxidants. Chocolate is one of the large, best antioxidants, right? I was sensitive to chocolate. I didn't eat that for 5 years.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, look, if you break it in hives, you're not eating the chocolate, right? But I used my bod to reverse it.
Well, that's good though, because people look at the results and say, you know what? Not only is, let's say, sugar or the chocolate that's bringing the sugar, not only is it suggested overall as an unhealthy, with candy, for example, but my cells are reacting to it, so my body really doesn't want it. So it's great to be able to see that, that result.
Yeah.
So that's reinoculate. And then there's the repair. So the repair part would be, we talked about gut permeability. We talked about leaky gut. We want to help to repair the gut with gut healing nutrients. So this is where things, nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, the different
fatty acids, right?
Essential fatty acids, yes.
Your body can't make.
I'm sorry?
Your body can't make essential fatty acids.
Correct. So, the gut healing nutrients. So, in other words, that needs to be done as well. And then the last R, again, would be the rebalance. So, aiming for enough sleep. So, if we're working with people that are not getting enough sleep, we have to address that really as really a top priority, because that's really more important than anything that we tell them to do with the food. So helping to get, better sleep hygiene and, getting the electronics off, a few hours before, not having those electronics in the same room where they're sleeping, all this kind of stuff, maybe taking an Epsom salts bath, before they go to bed, maybe taking some magnesium. So things like that. Deep breathing, for sleep. But stress management is the rebalance, getting enough exercise, enough sleep, meditation, all those wonderful stress management type of therapies. And the last R2 we call reintroduce. Now, what that means is, and this tends to be a confusing issue for people, they say, what do you mean that I'm ready to reintroduce? Like we'll say the severe reactions can be avoided, or to be avoided for 6 months or more, and the moderate reactions 3 months or more. And they're like, what do you mean? Isn't this for the rest of my life? No, it's not. And here's the thing, you know, the immune system, just like every organ system in the body, is changing. And here's what we want to do. You give your immune system a rest, give your body a rest from these reactive foods. As you're doing that, you're replacing with a variety of non-reactive. You're taking the gut healing suggestions as you're avoiding these foods for the right period of time. What we want to hear the person say, the goal is that you want the person to say, oh my gosh, I am feeling wonderful. For every reason why I got tested, it's been resolved. And I'm sleeping well. My digestion is great. I haven't had any migraines. My skin is great. I'm losing weight. Oh my gosh, I feel wonderful. This is wonderful. Okay, I'll say to them, did you take all of our suggestions for healing the gut? Did you remove everything for the right period of time? If you feel confident that the person did, now you're ready to reintroduce those reactive foods systematically, one at a time. Because you want to detect whether or not those symptoms return. Because if they don't, they're back in that green box, the non-reactive. So that's the process and what we're trying to accomplish here with utilizing this testing.
First of all, you're amazing.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. You're amazing.
Not sweet. I actually am pretty high maintenance, and so I'm just going to. And I have standards. I'm going to go to a couple commercials.
Okay.
I think this is the best time to, after a commercial, to show that test, because you're saying now we're going to reintroduce. I want to show people like the foods that could possibly show up. I mean, okay.
Good idea.
If you need to take a break or anything, I'm going to run commercial. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Do you worry about finances, family, health, jobs, relationships? Are you in pain? Do you feel stuck? If you answered yes to any of these questions, help is available. Don't worry, you're not alone. It's part of the human process. You only feel this way because you haven't mastered the voices in your head. No hype, just down-to-earth, solid, workable tools and techniques that you can practice daily. It's really food for the soul, whether you want to learn how not to worry about anything, reverse type 2 diabetes, publish a book, promote your product or service, or just make extra money. To take advantage of the deal of the day, go to zeldaspeaks.com or call 312-409-6619. Mention promo code The Female Solution and get free shipping. That's zeldaspeaks.com or 312-409-6619. Stop worrying today. Visit zeldaspeaks.com.
Okay, and now we're going to talk about the functional food program in the commercial.
Did you know that more than 100 million U.S. adults are now living with diabetes, prediabetes, obesity, and pain? We know these chronic conditions are the leading causes of death and disability, and they are driven by our lifestyles. The good news is that you have the power to prevent these chronic diseases by joining the Functional Food Program. We teach you to make simple changes and transform your life. When participating in the Functional Food Program, you will learn how to navigate the grocery store, avoid hidden sugars, identify GMOs, improve gut health, support the immune system, and more. On top of that, you'll receive a healthy lifestyle jumpstart kit and begin eliminating toxins immediately. So, improve your health by clicking the link below and join the Functional Food Program today.
Okay, and we got one more here. I think if I can figure out. Wrong one. Hold on.
A functional food is a food which delivers health benefits to its consumer beyond.
That's not what we want. So I love that I am just so talented when it comes. We actually have somebody holding for a question. So I'm actually just going to run this last commercial, and then we're going to bring on 336-350. We see that you have a question, and we are going to take your question as soon as I can figure this out. So here we go. There we go. So I think this is it. Yep, there we go. Hi, I'm Jodi Suson with Suson Essentials. I started Suson Essentials in 2015 because of a personal health journey. I was over-medicated and put on 19 different medications. And yes, I reversed all my chronic diseases using plant and energy-based healing. It was amazing. At Suson Essentials, we support both consumers and businesses, and we do that with helping your employees or yourself with a food as medicine mindset. How Suson Essentials supports businesses and consumers is we teach people about a food as medicine mindset. So we support people on how to support their own immune system, how to support their brain health, how to support their emotional well-being. And we do that all with plant and an energy-based healing. Okay, so we are going to stop the screen share. Here we go. We're back. Amy, can we take a quick question from a caller?
Of course, yes.
This is Jodi Suson with Suson Essentials, and I will make this brief. Apparently, I'm still talking from another video. So technology, so we're just going to put this out there. Technology is my friend, not my best friend. I'm just...
Deep breaths, take deep breaths.
I don't worry about it. I think more people worry about it than me. So, so I'm going to bring on 336-350, and we're going to ask, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Can you hear me? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, this is Paris, Mama AZ, and I'm calling you from Buffalo Soldier Country, which is Fort Huachuca, Arizona. I just was able to tune in, and thank you so much, and greetings, family. I heard apple cider vinegar for one thing, and I'm wondering about the positive effects of apple cider vinegar. I use Bragg's Boulevard, I call it, but it's Bragg's. You get it at the health food store, Safeway. And the next question that I have, I'm in a nursing home right now, and they swabbed my nose in the hospital and in the ER, and they wanted to swab it yesterday. I said no. So they're bringing the CDC or CBT or whoever in to have a counsel with me about not allowing them to go up in my nose again. So what herbs can I get to flush whatever this is, because I can't breathe since they swabbed me. I don't know what they're going to do, but if I have to leave the nursing home, I'm willing to do that. But I can't inhale. It hurts to inhale. My nose is raw, is sore from that swabbing. So what other tests can detect the COVID? Because they woke me up at 11 o'clock last night to get blood work, and that was strange to me, and a urine sample, and that's never happened like that. So I know they must be checking for something, because I refuse to let them go up in my nose, and they're bringing the CDC down here to have a counsel with me. So what can I do herbally to whatever this is that has me stopped up and my nose raw, to get it out of my system? And is there another test that they can check to see if you have COVID through your blood or your spit? Because that's the only way I'm going to allow them to do anything, even if I have to leave this establishment.
Okay, so great questions, Mama AZ. And I'm so sorry that you're not feeling well. And so let me start with the first one about apple cider vinegar. And I put a link in the thread, and I pulled it from Dr. Josh Axe. Apple cider vinegar will regulate blood sugar levels, enhance weight loss. Studies show that it will lower cholesterol. It also will reduce blood sugar and relieve symptoms of acid reflux. It will improve skin health because of that. And, you know, I also use it in my dishwasher as a spot remover. So there.
Oh.
So there you go. It also enhances circulation. We use it to kill bugs and fleas. It's a natural deodorant, can keep your hair shiny. I mean, so ACV is amazing. The information's in the thread, and I know that you can't get that yourself, but I know other people can. Relative to, I don't have any answers relative to how to do a test for COVID-19. It's not my area of expertise. And I know it's not Amy's. Relative to, you know, breathing, I know that you can't do peppermint, but if you don't have a sensitivity to eucalyptus and you have eucalyptus essential oil, you can rub it in the palm of your hand and just breathe in through your nose. Eventually it will get through. I mean, I get that you're, you know, and you're not putting it on your skin other than your palm of your hand. And if you don't want to put it on the palm of your hand, you can keep it in the bottle and just inhale it. But it gets into your brain in about 20 seconds and into your blood system in 30. And then I will talk to you offline about your other questions, because I know Mama Easy. So,
I appreciate this, and greetings to your guest. I appreciate this. Okay, that's it, and I'll chime out and listen. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Sending love your way, prayers your way, and know that God's got your back.
Yes, ma'am. Thank God.
All right.
Oh.
Bye, Dolly. Okay, so let me see if I can do this. Okay, so we are back. And Amy, I am going to bring on the test. Is that a good time now?
Sounds great.
Okay. I assumed you didn't have that answer either. So,
no, I didn't. No, I don't know of any other way to test for the actual COVID infection other than the swab up the nose. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not my area. I choose not to make it my area because I focus on health. You know, like, yeah.
Yes. Same with me.
So here what we're showing is a sample test of the results of the sample LCAT test, right? And we have 4 columns. One shows foods that are, they're all showing, 3 of the columns are showing foods that are reactive, and severe, moderate, or mild, and acceptable, no reaction. But really, I'm going to let you take it from here. So go ahead.
Okay, sure. Well, exactly what you pointed out, the green box, those are the non-reactive foods. Remember though, if your listeners are considering having this test, you know, if they say crab did not come out to be, reactive. And I know I have an allergy to crab. And of course I say, well, and that's we need to know that. But this is not an allergy test. So, if you have an allergy to shellfish and shellfish doesn't come out to be reactive, it doesn't matter. You got to continue to avoid it. So remember, it's not an allergy test. So there might be some things in the green box that the person is actually truly allergic to. But that's where we try to focus. Is the good news is all of the non-reactions. And I do suggest that the patient who is getting tested look at the green box first, the good news, to say how much. I'm so sorry. Can you hear the landscaper behind me?
That is okay. We've had birds start talking.
They come now. It's been 4 weeks and they choose now to come. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I like to get an idea if what the patient enjoys from the green box, the non-reactive list, because then you're going to get an idea like how easy is this going to be, or how enjoyable is this going to be for the person. So we start there. Then I would point out the severely reactive list. So we go over and we say, all right, the ALCAT test is also designating the degree of reactivity. Right. So severe obviously is the most severe. So meaning the white blood cells change the most in number and in size when those test agents for this person, avocado, garlic, iceberg lettuce, lamb, sweet potato, and swordfish, when they were challenged with those test agents, they changed the most. So the general recommendation, and I say general because we like to individualize, but the general recommendation is for the person to avoid the severely reactive list for 6 months or more as they are doing the gut healing protocol as well. The moderate list is recommended to avoid those for 3 months or more. And then in general, the mild list.
May I point something out here?
Yeah.
Because, I got really pissed, right? So take a look at this one under moderate. And I'm just kind of glad this is the sample. So I was sensitive to egg yolk, but not egg white. And I'm like, WTF, right? Like, you want me to separate that and not have a sensitivity?
Well, can you imagine the person that's sensitive to egg white and not the egg yolk? I mean, they're going to say, should I just eat the egg yolks for my omelet? I'm like, yeah, probably not.
Right? I mean, so what I want to share, about this is that so there's the sensitivities and then the reaction to what you find out.
Yes, that's true.
And so be prepared for the reaction you're going to have when you find out what you're sensitive to, and just be okay with it. Be okay that you get mad, be okay that you get sad, be okay, with those emotions, and then get into action. Right?
And try to look at it like, if that's good news. To see that you have reactions to things that you have been consuming, try to look at it as good news, because then we know that the elimination of it is going to make a difference. Because, when I say that, what I was saying about the general recommendations for the severe list, 6 months or more. But if you go back to the severe list and I say to the patient, hey, how significant were these foods for you prior to the test? Meaning, how much were you consuming these prior to your blood draw? If they say, yeah, I don't eat any of those things, I'm right away going to think, okay, well, the person is still symptomatic, but they're avoiding these things already. So far, how much difference is this going to make? So that would make me maybe tighten up the rules a little bit with the next few lists. If the patients already have been avoiding these, but yet they're severely reactive, I say, well, you're already avoiding them, but you need to continue for at least 6 months because you have a severe reaction to them. But if the patient says, oh my gosh, I love guacamole, I have garlic and everything, sweet potato I have in everything because I know it's healthy more than white potato, you hear that a lot. So then I think, okay, it's pretty significant. Now let's look at the moderate list. So if the patient says, there's a whole long list of things here, like they say, oh, I have eggs all the time. Oh, corn is everywhere. Walnuts, of course, wonderful nut to eat. Beef is, you get the sense that this is significant for them when they're going to avoid these foods. So it's going to make the difference. Then that might make me say, all right, the general recommendation for the mild reactions is to limit them to 2 days a week or in an 8-day period. 1 day.
One right here, the mild. Go ahead and read that.
Right.
Limit them to 2 days a week. Is that right?
Right. And not 2 days in a row. So you're rotating it. So in other words, you're limiting the intake of those, not necessarily completely avoiding them. But as I said, if a patient looks at the results and they say, I hardly eat any of the foods that I'm moderately reactive to, but geez, look at all the stuff that I have every day from my mild list, then you might choose to eliminate the whole list for 3 months rather than limit them to 2 days per week.
Okay, now I want to bring up a really important point, and I don't know if you were going to get there, so forgive me.
No, sure.
So here's the thing. Let's look at this mild list, and let's look at the moderate list. You've got basil in there. You've got walnut, corn. Corn is in almost everything.
Yes.
Right. And I want to talk to, and lemon's not on this list, but for the sake of this conversation, I want to pretend like it is. Pretend that it's on either the severe, mild, or moderate. And here is why. Lemon is in almost everything. Okay. When you're buying, it's actually even used in some of our cosmetics. It's in your multivitamin. Not lemon, but a lot of these things will be in your multivitamins. And going back to the severe, right? You may not eat garlic, but one of the supplements that you're taking,
sure, yep,
may have it.
Right.
So,
and exactly. And that's exactly what I say to people. This is not just the foods that you're ingesting. This is any derivative of these. So for example, we look at, people say, yeah, I don't have an anchovy ever. Do you take fish oil? Oh yeah, I take fish oil all the time. All right, let's check your fish oil source because it might be anchovy. And it's very common, anchovy and sardine. So we need to look at it as everything they ingest. Beef, gelatin in the supplements. Most of the time it's beef unless it's specified vegetarian. Like you said, corn is everywhere. Egg in things, egg in the process. So, you mentioned, lemon is everywhere, corn is everywhere. And guess what? When a person is following their food sensitivity results, if they're doing it properly, they're going to be needing to avoid packaged and processed foods, period, because it's not going to be likely they're going to find products that work with the results that that are going to be gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free if they need to be, which we need to go to the bottom of the page eventually, but and then free of all their other reactive ingredients. It's not easy, in other words. So there are products, don't get me wrong, and that's one of the things that we do in
Previmedica. So here's the thing. So as you may recall, I use doTERRA products. Okay. My shampoo has like 30 different items in it. No shampoo for me for a while. I had to do like the one. That's why I became a purist.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to know exactly. And don't get me wrong, I'm using doTERRA now that I reversed my sensitivities, but for a long time it wasn't an option. So you're not just looking at your food. You're looking at your personal care items. Women, makeup. Men, what's your facial cleanser look like? What does your soap look like? Does your soap have lavender in it? Is the scrub that you're using have sugar in it?
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, even though it's a health promoting or it's a reputable product, maybe.
Great product.
Still would be containing some of your active ingredients. I mean, look at all the things that are tested. They're all health promoting in and of themselves. So they could certainly be in there. Now, the supplements you mentioned too. Supplements that are food-based, are normally wonderful.
Right.
But when you're working with sensitivities and you got the broccoli extract in there and the broccoli sprouts and the carrots and the lemon, like you said, and the tomato, I mean, all these different food-based, wonderful. But we have to most of the time say, hey, it's a great product, but while you're following your results, you need to set that aside for the time being. We need to do things that don't have potential reactive ingredients in them when it comes to supplementation as well. So a lot to think about with this. As you said, it's not just the food, it's the personal care products. So making your own things is one of the things that we suggest for sure. With non-reactive ingredients. And we do have, some recipes, I know you do, some recipes for making those things and putting this kind of thing into practice. Now, you have the foods at the bottom of the first page, the components that are tested in these blue boxes here. The reason they get their own box is they're looking at Candida albicans, gluten, gliadin, casein, and whey. Now, remember, this entire test is looking at the reactivity of these test agents when the test agents are challenged to the white blood cells. So when these are tested and if reactive, like this person had a moderate reaction to Candida. So it's the same color coding system, to orange, moderate reaction. But the reason why all these other foods and why does they get their own box is because of the reaction to the Candida, this person needs to avoid all these sugars. And that's why they're all listed here. The agave, the cane sugar, fructose, honey, maple sugar, molasses. And that's why they're listed here. They get their own box. And then you see the reaction to the gluten and the gliadin. That's why all those gluten-containing grains are in the box.
So the agave is severe. The cane sugar is mild.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The fructose is severe. I think that's red. And then the honey, maple sugar, molasses is non-reactive. But people say, oh, I can do the honey and then the maple sugar.
Yeah, no.
No, that's what, unfortunately, no. That's why it's in the box, to tell you to avoid that. But the outside test tests the direct reactivity to the agave, the cane sugar, fructose, honey, maple sugar, and molasses. And they have to report the reaction. And this is how they do it. So they're saying, look, you didn't react to honey or maple sugar or molasses directly, but you need to avoid it anyway because of reaction to the Candida.
Right, because you're feeding the Candida.
Right.
Okay.
Now, the Candida reaction in the ALCAT test, just for your listeners who understand what Candida is a yeasty-like fungus, and it's present really in all the mucous membranes in our bodies, and we all have it, and we all, we can normally control the growth of the Candida. So when it gets overgrown, it's problematic. And very often it gets overgrown in the gut. And that's a problem. And if it's overgrown in the gut, just like we were talking about before, gut health overall, that's a form of dysbiosis when we have Candida overgrowth. And we need to address it because if we don't, we're going to be spinning our wheels. We could be as diligent as we can be with avoiding our other reactive foods. But if we don't address Candida overgrowth, we're going to be spinning our wheels. So I
think about your brain health, right, Amy? So this is what we're talking. One of the things that we're talking about, the brain-gut connection. And when you're having sugar, any type of sugar, especially cane sugar, it'll light up 8 pleasure centers in the brain. How well are you functioning with that?
Exactly.
Just say cocaine lights up 1.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, then you have that Candida overgrowth in there, which is, the toxins that the Candida itself is producing. And now you have, even more symptoms related to the consumption of the sugar. So the reaction of the Candida in the ALCAT test is not a diagnosis for the overgrowth. However, it makes us suspect that the person has it. So if the patient says, I want to go to a practitioner to test me to see if I have it, great, sure, there are some tests for that. At the same time, we could be working on that potential Candida overgrowth by avoiding the sugar, anything that's going to feed it, and doing some natural antimicrobials that the person did not react to, like garlic. If they didn't react to, this person reacted severely, we couldn't do garlic, but coconut if non-reactive, oil of oregano, if the patient got tested for golden seal, with berberine. So these are some things that are such a natural, nutrient food-based therapy that we could be dealing with this Candida overgrowth. So that's the way we would look at it. But yes, that's the color-coded print in this box is how they report the reaction to those foods.
And just for the listening audience, so Amy just mentioned what I was hoping she might mention about the oregano, right? Well, there was a young girl who had ankle surgery. and she really likes sugar. I mean, she just turned 16 and she's a gymnast. So if you're listening, but the thing is while she was healing, we put her on oregano, oil of oregano. And it allowed her to stop craving the sugar. We did energy healing on her, using these FDA cleared devices. And she was able to speed her healing because sugar is so harmful to the body. Mm-hmm. And you're still going to heal, but you're just not going to heal as fast when you're trying to reclaim your health. I want to just make sure that people know there are options, which I use, and it's in my coffee mug this morning, which is monk fruit. Again, to make sure you're not sensitive to monk or xylitol. But
right, that's tested. Right. And that's a good point to bring up, because people might say, here's another example. Well, just like what you said, if monk fruit, which is low hand, if that was tested, it's in the functional food panel, non-reactive, there you go. There's a great substitute for sugar, and it's not going to feed the yeast. Stevia, if that's tested, it's not going to feed the yeast if it's non-reactive. But when people say things like, oh, can I have my, this is off the subject of sugar for a second. I want to do my CBD. I want to do my hemp oil. If they didn't choose the panel that has hemp on it, I'm going to say, well, it's untested. So we don't know if it would be reactive. So it's best that I know it's a drag, when we say these things, but I have to tell you, it's best to avoid it and treat it like it's reactive because we don't know how to react. So then the point to all that too is the more information, the better. The more to test, the better. So a lot of times people, like parents who get their children tested, for example, they'll choose 100 food panel. And I understand, because they feel like their child does not eat a lot. But if they only test for 100 foods, and let's say 50 of them or 30 or whatever, 40 are reactive, and then of course a good, 10 of them are spices, so in other words, they're so limited with the foods that are non-reactive. I say, wouldn't you want to have more information to know what you could introduce to your son or daughter as new foods? So again, if we're only testing for 150 foods, there's 100 foods right there that are out.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you that my clients, I have them test for every little last thing, because when you find out how many foods that you're sensitive to, you want to have options about what that you can put in.
Right, exactly.
Here's the other point that you made about hemp. Let me bring that in. A lot of times people are taking hemp or CBD because they have anxiety, they have stress, they have pain. Spoiler, when you do this test, you're not going to need it.
Yeah.
Right? So let's go with that.
Likely not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, from time to time, I use a really high quality hemp oil. It's actually a 0 THC and 0 CBD. It's actually all terpenes. But anyway, the point is, once you reclaim your health, okay, you can put it back in and see if you're reactive. You're going to know, immediately, since it's the only one. Now, my friend Vieta, who's also a host, she says she uses Pau d'Arco extract to control the candida. Amy, are you familiar with that? Because I'm not.
I have not used it, but it is tested on one of the panels. Yes. In the herb functional food. I believe so, yes.
What is that?
I haven't used it. I have no experience with it, but it's a botanical. I would imagine it's an antimicrobial.
Okay, got it. Cool. Thank you, Vieta. And then let's talk about the gluten and gliadin. A lot of people don't know about the gliadin, and Andrew and I had that on our test. So,
all right. So, number one, people are familiar with celiac disease. Keep in mind, this is not a test for celiac disease, although Cell Science Systems does do genetic testing for celiac and the serology markers that would indicate active celiac. So people with celiac disease, very common to have other sensitivities. So a lot of people are doing, with celiac are doing this test, and they might say, why the heck didn't I react to the gluten? Well, it's not the same reaction. This is the white blood cell response. But within the gluten, it's made up of proteins itself. Gluten is the protein component of the most common grains: wheat, rye, barley, malt, spelt. But it's also made up of gliadin and glutenin. And years back, the cell science folks realized that, you know, people could actually react to the gliadin within the gluten, not to the gluten necessarily itself. So that's when they started testing the gliadin too. Now, the only way to avoid gliadin is to avoid gluten. So, you know, this person had a severe reaction to gluten. Absolutely, this person needs to be gluten-free. And that's why all these gluten-containing grains are pulled into the blue box, because those are the ones that are also tested in the ALCAT test. So this person had a moderate reaction directly to the wheat, mild to barley, no reaction to malt, rye, and spelt. And now a person might say, well, how the heck could I have this severe reaction to gluten and to gliadin, but not react to the malt, rye, and spelt? And that's a really good question, very common question.
So what's the answer to that?
The answer is that when the ALCAT test is testing the gluten and the gliadin, it's 100% gluten. It's 100% gliadin. When they're testing the actual grains, that test agent, remember, there's hundreds of other constituents that are in wheat and malt and rye and spelt. So in other words, there's gluten and gliadin in there, but the amount that was in that test agent, for that particular test agent for that grain, was not enough to make that white blood cell response. But it doesn't matter, because the person needs to avoid the rye and the spelt and the malt because of the reaction to the gluten and the gliadin. Because remember, so in other words, the way I kind of explain it is, it's because there are hundreds of other constituents in those grains. It's kind of like the gliadin is a little bit more diluted, I guess, because it's amongst many other things. It's not the straight 100% gluten or the 100%.
Got it. Okay, got it. And
same question with the, I'm sorry to interrupt, same question with the dairy.
Yeah, you there. Yeah, go ahead.
The casein and the whey. So this two main proteins in dairy. This person did not react to casein, but had a mild reaction to whey. Anytime something is mildly reactive at the bottom of the page, we always recommend a 3 months avoidance. So this person needs to be dairy free because of the reaction to the whey. And that's why all the mammals' milks are in here, you know, to go dairy free. So that includes not just, of course, milk. It includes yogurt and cheese, and of course, ice cream would be out anyway, because this person needs to avoid the sugar. So unless they can, you know, do a homemade ice cream without the sugar, but and without the milk. So this person needs to be gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. And as you mentioned before, Jodi, it's a good idea for people to get a look at these sample results, because if they're interested in the test, it's a good idea to know what to possibly expect. Mm-hmm. and to be ready to eliminate some favorite foods. And that's the good news, because, you know, they spend the money on this test to get to the bottom of things. And, you know, that you want to find out that, yes, you've been consuming some things that are reactive for you, and you're taking all the guesswork out of it, you know, rather than a standard elimination plan, you know, where they might say, take out all the common culprits. You know, take out gluten, dairy, egg, corn, soy, tomato, sugar. You know, there might be a standard elimination plan. Rather than doing that, let's see. You know, rice, for example. Here's an example. Rice would be something that's very commonly kept in a standard elimination plan, because the potential reactivity tends to be low. But we're talking antibody response. Well, what if the person has a reaction to the rice? You know, they need to be gluten-free, but if they're consuming a whole bunch of, you know, gluten-free products that has the rice flour in it, you know, rice is gluten-free, but we could be making the person worse. You know,
so I mean, this is so huge. So 2 things I want to mention, okay? So, number 1, let's just start with the rice and how sourcing the food. This is why I created my functional food program. It's not just what each food is doing. It's how you source your food. Because your mushrooms, you may not be sensitive to mushrooms, but if they're grown on a bed of rice, you bet your bottom dollar you are.
Sure.
These are the things that these are the nuances. This is what you need to know, right? And that's why, it's so important. I'm going to plug myself. This is why it's so important to hire me. Sorry. I mean, because if you don't know how your food is sourced and you're putting in a powdered mushroom or even a real, and you don't know this, you're going to still have inflammation. And that's why what I do is critically important. And without what you do, I would have never looked.
Good.
I would have never looked if it wasn't for you guys. Really.
Yeah, it is life-changing. It really can be life-changing. And, I also, and I'm sure you would be counseling people this way too, even though certainly it's best to put these results into practice as soon as possible, but at the same time, it can be very overwhelming and daunting. So we can ease into this. It's not like, we expect people to do this overnight. Sure, it'd be great if they could do it overnight, but it's unlikely. And when people do it that quickly, I get a little worried that it's not going to, it's not going to stick for very long. So
that's really the truth. That's so true, because here's the thing, Amy, I did do it overnight. I got rid of everything. I went cold turkey. I did not care. I wanted my health back. So then it took me, as I was developing the program, time to figure out I was the outlier.
Yes.
And the other thing that I think people need to know about your test, and you may not know this, only because it's really not about your test, it's about the competitor. Okay. So there are competitors, and I really won't call them competitors because nobody even holds a candle to what you guys do. The competitors are measuring exposure. We don't really care. We don't care what you've been exposed to. What we care about is how your body's responding to it. And so there was a test that was done by another company, and they said, well, you can have cottage cheese, but you can't have cheddar cheese. I'm like, really? Because cheese is cheese. Right? So that is what's going on out there, Amy. I don't know if you're aware of that. Are you aware?
I'm aware of the different food sensitivity tests that are available. And you're right about the ones that are the antibody tests only, like you said, exposure.
Right.
So you look at the results and you say, was this just because I was eating it, or am I really sensitive to it? And of course, in the process of eliminating the ones that come up, certainly the person probably has a sensitivity to something that they were eating, right? So they might feel some benefit. But the other thing is some of the antibody tests, like the IgG, have been shown to be protective. When that's elevated, it's protection. It's not necessarily a harmful response. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to mention, you mentioned exposure. Keep in mind that, that last R with reintroduction of the 5R program, we said we could systematically reintroduce the reactive foods. I do want people to understand that there is exposure that needs to be considered for every immune test that exists, including IgE, the allergy test. Exposure is something that has to happen. With the ALCAT test, I always tell people, you picture a white blood cell, picture a cell, we can all picture a cell. Picture a bunch of different arrows pointing into that cell. These represent pathway. I know it's a very simplified way of explaining it and complicated. The immune system is very complicated, but there are a bunch of different pathways that impact the reactivity of the white blood cell. The ALCAT test doesn't know what pathway made the white blood cells react. All it knows is that the cells reacted. So my point is, some of those pathways rely on exposure and some do not. So if you have a patient, if your listener is saying, I think I want to do this test, but I've been gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, corn-free, tomato-free, free of everything, sugar-free for months. I would say, do you have any allergies to those foods? True allergies? If they say, no, I just heard they were culprits and I took them out. I say, all right, just in case that pathway, if it is still a sensitive food for you, or if it ever was a sensitivity for you, if that pathway relies on exposure, you need to prime that system just in case. So 2 to 3 times within the week prior to getting tested, let's try to have some of those things that you've eliminated just in case.
I remember you telling me that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's important. And people, and people don't like to hear it. I say, hey, look, it would be wonderful that we wouldn't have to do that. I would love that, but that's just not how it is. That's not how the immune system works. But the beauty of it, because then we'll say, well, like back to that example, I forget what's on there, but let's just say sweet potatoes on there. They might say, well, I've never had sweet potato in my entire life. How could I possibly be reactive to that? Well, evidently, the pathway that was responsible for making that white blood cell activate is not relying on exposure. And that's the beauty of the ALCAT test. It'll pick up if it doesn't rely on exposure, but if it does, it might not pick it up. So people who are gluten-free, like me, I've been gluten-free for years. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to eat it when we do the ALCAT test because I know I have a problem with gluten. So I'm not going to put myself through that. And if the people, your listeners are the same way, I say, hey, I understand, I get it, but just have a realistic expectation for the test results.
Totally. And I wanted, because we only have like 10 minutes and actually not even that. So one of the things that's super important, I thought, in reclaiming my health and the health of my patients is understanding 2 things: your nutrient insufficiencies or deficiencies, and also which antioxidants are best. And if you just spend a minute on each one, I think it deserves way more time. Don't get me wrong.
Okay. Well, this is another wonderful test that Cell Science Systems does. And keep in mind, all right, nutrients. Where do nutrients do their jobs? Nutrients and all of biochemistry takes place within the cell, intracellularly. When you go to the doctor and the doctor measures vitamin D in your blood or B12, keep in mind that is in the blood. That is extracellular, outside of the cell. And that's more of a reflection of a short-term nutrient status. Maybe, and different nutrients have different amounts of time that they'll stick around in the blood, but basically a couple of weeks at the most. This is long-term. This is a reflection of the nutrient status over 6 to 9 months. This is and what the cell 6 to 9 months previous to the test. This is not a snapshot, and this is saying what is happening. Is it sufficient within the cell? Very possible for a person to have an adequate vitamin D level in the blood and be inadequate or insufficient in this test, or vice versa. So the question that's how people need to understand it. One is outside the cells, but the nutrients do their jobs inside the cells. So the way they report it is on a gradient scale. And this is all the person is under control.
For a moment?
Sure.
I want to make sure, because that was just overwhelmed. So this test is measuring, let's say, the vitamin D level in the cell as opposed to in the blood. Is that right?
Yeah, it's measuring the lymphocytes. So what happens is the specimen, it's measuring the functional response of the cells as a result of adding a nutrient to the specimen. And that response of the cells is what's telling you, do you need this nutrient because you don't have enough of it in the cells, or are you sufficient? So what happens is when the specimen arrives to the laboratory, they separate out the T and the B lymphocytes from the patient's specimen. They put them back then into the patient's own serum, and then they stimulate the cells with something called a mitogen stimulator. So your listeners might know about mitosis, making the cells divide and become more metabolically active. They do that to determine the patient's baseline, what's called proliferation rate. So every time they add a nutrient to the specimen, different specimen of the cells, they're always comparing what happens to the cells after adding that nutrient based on the person, comparing it to the patient's baseline. So everything that's reported that you see here in the green, that's sufficient, meaning when they added that nutrient, it did not increase the metabolic activity of the cells. So what that means is there's enough of that nutrient in the specimen.
So like anesthetic acid and MK7, those were There was no
proliferation. So
Thank
that means the same with the delta tocotrienol, and that was at 103%. So the green area goes up to 109%. So they consider that baseline, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like biotin, for example, that was insufficient because the addition of the biotin significantly increased the metabolic activity of the cells.
And B2, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, right, and vitamin B2 over there. So anything that's in the red significantly increased the proliferation. It's a good response, but it also means that the patient needs it because they didn't have enough in the original specimen. And then there's the borderline insufficient in the yellow area. It increased the proliferation somewhat. So now, it's called insufficiencies. We say not deficiencies because remember, deficiencies is a diagnosis and we're not looking at overt deficiencies.
Thank you. I'm turning off my tower garden. Go ahead. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's up to us as practitioners to help patients figure out why are we insufficient. This is not just about like saying, oh, I need biotin, let's buy a supplement, or I need iron, let's buy a supplement. We need to figure out what is leading to these insufficiencies. Could it be something so easy that the patient's just not eating enough in their eating pattern? Could it be that they're taking medications that interfere with the nutrient status? And we know all medications interfere with nutrient status somehow. Could it be that they just have poor gut health? They got a whole bunch of sensitivities that we need to look at and correct and heal the gut. And that's why they're having these problems with absorbing the nutrients. Could it be that they have genetic variants that's preventing the inactive form of a nutrient getting converted into the active form? I mean, these are all, things that need to be considered before the practitioner helps the patient determine how to replete. It's not just saying, let's take this supplement. We have to look at the whole picture.
That's awesome. And I'm going to see if I can pull up the antioxidant.
Okay. So I can talk about that while you're pulling it up. So the first thing is with regard to free radicals, we all come in contact with them, we're just walking outside. We try not to, but free radicals would be things that cause damage overall to the cells. They tend to, and by the way, leukocyte activation with the immune response to foods is one of the biggest contributing factors to oxidative stress, the free radical damage. But, we get free radicals from cigarette smoke, from pollution, from just metabolizing our foods. People who exercise, especially athletes, believe it or not, a lot of exercise causes free radicals. It's not a bad thing. We just need to antioxidize, and we need to have a good, what's called a redox potential, meaning we need to have good antioxidant capacity so that our cells are protecting themselves from free radical damage and cells dying, the cell die-off. So the test that you're pulling up is the redox assay, which is telling the person, how are your cells doing to protect yourselves from free radical damage, because they put them in hydrogen peroxide. They challenge them with hydrogen peroxide. So yeah, the test at the top where they see the redox score at the very top in that bar, the red. Okay, so if you figure, all right, so what they did was they took the patient's lymphocytes, they challenged them with hydrogen peroxide to generate free radicals. They didn't add any nutrients to them. They just wanted to see how are the cells going to do to protect themselves. So then they incubated the cells with this hydrogen peroxide for a couple of days. So you figure day one, you start at 100% of your cells. Day two, this patient went down to 77%. It's not so bad. You expect some cell loss. You don't want it, but you expect some cell loss. So this patient then, that's number 77 with the white diamond there, they put that in. That's considered an average for the population. And, we want to be above average. So I would say to this patient, let's see how we can get that better. So then what they did with this other gradient score, this test here, is the same thing with the proliferation of the cells, but the difference with this test is their cells were in the hydrogen peroxide, were creating free radical damage. And now they added an antioxidant nutrient or botanical one at a time to see which ones not only prevented the cells from dying, but which ones increased the metabolic activity of the cells, even while this hydrogen peroxide was trying to work against them. So that's why they label anything that increased the proliferation like we looked at in the other assay, towards the right, that's highly protective. And then in the middle is protective, not as protective. So why is this important? Because, people looking online, oh, I'm going to be taking turmeric. I'm taking, let's just say I'm taking astragalus. I'm taking nitcoins. I'm taking
90 seconds.
Yeah, I'm taking this. I'm taking that. Okay. Then they say, is that bad for me? And if it didn't come out to be protective. And I said, well, it's not bad for you, but why are you taking it? Well, I'm taking it for antioxidant protection. Okay. Well, if it's not protective, you're not getting bang for your buck. So let's take something that is going to be protective for you. So it's a great.
Rhodiola, I found out, was one for me. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now you want to look in the ALCAT test and make sure you were not reactive to it there, because that's why it's great to put 2 of them.
Seconds.
Right. And then the other thing is what we did is we went, we both work with Emerson Ecologics and Wellevate. And so we were able to run a query to make sure to find the right supplement that the person can use that doesn't have any of the reactive items.
It's perfect.
Yeah. And there's so much more to go over, and it's going to start running the ending commercial in a second.
Okay. All right. And it went fast. There's so much to talk about.
I know. You were like worried. It's 2 hours. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, I tend to be able to go on and on forever, as I'm sure you gathered. So whether people want to listen or not, I'll go on and on.
I love that you are so highly educated.
10 seconds.
Well, I'm not, but thank you. And you as well.
So I guess I need to run the ending commercial. And I just, if we get cut off, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me run this. After it runs, I just want to have a quick close, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I usually don't run over, but I have to. Sorry.
Okay, absolutely. Okay. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
We've come to the end of our show today, but you can hear every show in the archives at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. You can also hear today's show on the Female Solution Facebook page. Go to www.facebook.com/thefemalesolution. Leave your comments about today's show. You can always reach me on my website at www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. Watch our TV shows, listen to our radio shows, order our books, and be sure to get your copy of the book, The Female Solution. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussion. And to our global family listening from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, Sheshe, India, Zanyaba, Japan, Arigato, Korea, Kamsahamnida, Russia, Spasiba, Germany, Danke, Poland, Jean Kujon, France, Merci, Spain, Gracias, Italy, Grazie, Egypt, Shukran, Ghana, Medasi, Nigeria, Eshe, South Africa, Gabonga, Senegal, Jerez, Kenya, Asante, Israel, Toda, Pakistan, Shukriya, Afghanistan, Tashakur, Saudi Arabia, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. And may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.
What if you could live to be 120 years old and remain active, healthy, alert, and vibrant? Our bodies are made up of cells that are constantly rejuvenating. So if we take proper care of ourselves, we can literally defy aging.
Join us every Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time to learn about self-care from Suson Essentials on the Female Solutions Blog Talk Radio Show. Learn how to help your body and your cells feel rejuvenated each day through proper nutrition, sleep, frequency medicine, and many unconventional methods of self-care. I'm Jodi Suson. Join me and my amazing guests by calling in at 515-605-9325 and press 1 to speak. We'll help you achieve a breakthrough in your health today.
So we're going to end the broadcast on the radio, but if you're listening on the radio, you can go to YouTube, Suson Essentials, S-U-S-O-N Essentials, or Facebook, Suson Essentials. We're still broadcasting there, or you can catch the replay, but I'm going to end the episode now on the radio, so you won't be able to call in. I want to thank my listeners. And I'm going to end that, but we'll keep talking. So, end episode. Amy.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Okay, goodbye.
Such a wealth of information. And we absolutely need to have you back here to do deeper dives. I mean, this was a deep dive, but I mean, there's just so much more. You know this.
Right. We're just skimming the surface.
Yeah, right. And the thing is, the truth of the matter is, skimming the surface is about what the audience can take right now.
Right, because it might not appear to be skimming the surface to a lot of people if they say, oh my gosh, I got to take out gluten, dairy. And then, of course, when someone reacts to coffee, that's another big thing.
Well, and so when so one of the diagnoses that I had was small fiber neuropathy. And that was they did a biopsy. So we knew that I had that. So I had to take out anything that was going to stimulate the nerves, right? Coffee, any type of caffeine, chocolate, sugar, variations of sugar, maca powder, all those things. And so someone said to me, one of my clients said to me once, hey, this is a huge sacrifice. And I thought, is it? Or is it a gift? So part of this, and they eventually got that it was a gift.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that. But part of that is a shift in the mindset of, it's a shift in your mindset if you choose to really reclaim your health. It means that a lot of what I learned, a lot of what you learned growing up is not necessarily true. That alone is confrontational.
Yeah.
Gets it, right?
It's hard to accept. It's hard to accept for people.
Yeah, and I just want a couple minutes to discuss that because it's confrontational when you find out that as a kid you're eating this, and that. And I mean, and we're not even talking about the whole foods. We're talking about, isn't aspirin and ibuprofen on your list, by the way, of the
yes, they do test for the anti-inflammatories, yes.
So when you find out that ibuprofen actually causes inflammation for you.
How about that?
Right? And then, and then a lot of people, and I'm just sharing, from my clientele, they were maybe hesitant to get the extra 50, male herbs or female herbs or whatever. But here's the thing. Once you decide to reclaim your health, do what you need to do, right? Because knowledge is power, yes, and this knowledge allows you to put your knowledge into action and really have power, and not power over anyone other than you, like reclaiming your own power, which is another show we're doing.
Yeah, great segue, right? Yes, 100%.
So, any last words that you want to add? Because, for closing about the test, the importance any one of these tests, you know?
I feel that people, it's best that people recognize that blanket diets, there are reasons why they don't work overall. You know, they might work at the beginning, they don't work for long because they're not individualized. So when it comes to what you put into your body, and if you need supplementation, it needs to be individualized. Looking at what we just showed at the end here, the antioxidant protection assay, that's another thing that's individualized. Rather than say, oh, the internet told me I should take turmeric. All right, well, guess what? You know, turmeric is wonderful in and of itself, but number one, it didn't come out to be protective for you. So why are you taking it? I'm taking it for antioxidant protection. Well, guess what? It's not protecting you. Let's take something that's going to be highly protective for you. This is individualized. This person happened to be okay with turmeric. That was a bad example.
Yeah. And my screen is behind. I got screen over screen.
Well, let's do another example. Coenzyme Q10. You know, people say, oh, does it mean that it's bad for me? And I said, well, no, but why are you taking it? I'm taking it for antioxidant protection. Okay, well, let's spend the money on what's working for you, not coenzyme Q10. But there are other reasons to take coenzyme Q10. Maybe you're taking a statin drug and you really need to take that coenzyme Q10 because of the statin drug. So it's just a different way of looking at it. And again, testing is, I believe, very, very important because you're not guessing. If we don't test, you know, when we give nutrient suggestions, we could be wasting precious time and spinning our wheels with our suggestions and actually making people worse by suggesting anti-inflammatory eating, but foods that they're reacting to that we don't know, you know, so, or foods that are not protecting them as much as, you know, what we could be. So I just feel like that's the whole gist of this, is testing and not guessing.
Right. Taking out the guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think I may have mentioned this before, and I don't know if Cell Science has looked into this, but does Cell Science, like turmeric is not very effective, I didn't think, unless it's paired with black pepper.
Mm-hmm.
And has Cell Science, and if they haven't, it's no big deal. I mean, have they looked at doing a test, a line item that includes turmeric plus the black pepper in the body?
Not yet, but that's a good suggestion. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other thing is that, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Supplements are expensive, and that's the other mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Is instead of looking at it as an expense, and I'm just being the devil's advocate here, you know that, look at it as an investment in your health, because you're either going to pay for it upfront with a planned expenditure, a planned investment, much like your IRA and your 401k and things like that. It's a planned investment. Or you're going to get a surprise one day down the road and be forced to pay for something that, and you don't have the money, and you're forced to now stop what you're doing to take care of your health.
Right.
People work their entire lives. And I guess this is the biggest thing, because in a way, this is what happened to me. And I'm just going to close this up. Hold on, so we can just see each other. People work their entire lives just so they can stop working and reclaim their health.
Mm-hmm.
And I was that person. And that's why I bring this to corporate America, because we spend most of our lives working. And so if employers really want to have employees with increased productivity, take out the guesswork. You all have standard operating procedures for your processes,
Mm-hmm.
our bodies.
It's very true.
Yeah, standard operating procedure for our body to function at its full potential.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely, I agree, 100%.
All right. Well, you're a gift. I want to just thank you so very much for taking your time. I think you have guests in town, so you probably want to go do that. And we're 12 minutes.
Thank you.
First time that I've gone, like the first time since the very first show I've ever done, that I went over, because I can talk about this all day long.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And it's enjoyable for me to talk to someone who could talk about this all day long, because I can too.
Thank you. You're such a gift.
Thank you, you are too.
So I will, this will be shared on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We'll probably tweet it, Instagram as well. And, you know, feel free, Amy, to share this session with anyone in your company, anybody who's working with you as a customer, patient, what have you. And let's help heal the world.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you, Jodi. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for being my partner.
Thank you so much. You take care. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So let's do. Bye-bye.